Hello, I'm Lindley Gooden. Welcome back to Money Live and Insurance Innovators special broadcast series, Next Gen Customer Experience in Financial Services, sponsored by Smart Communications. Great to have you back with us. This is episode 3, and so far we've discussed and navigated some of this year's biggest and most pressing customer experience issues, from building trust and loyalty among customers to self-service automation and much more besides. And we still have a great lineup of experts from banking, insurance and lending. As always, some you'll already know, others you'll be hearing from for the first time. This time we add the FCA to our list of important guests. And of course, there are 2 episodes to watch on demand if you couldn't join us over the last couple of weeks. We've had some brilliant guests, including the CEO of Consumer Banking and Payments at Barclays and the CEO of the UK's first digital lender, Molo. Now, our expert panel has tackled also a range of key themes head on. And before we kick off today's discussion, a quick reminder that we really want to hear from you. You can share your experiences and comments throughout the webinar, leaving a comment using the plus button below us on the screen. Okay, before we get underway, welcome back to Martin Suter, Chief Product Officer, Ascentis at Smart Communications. Martin, great to see you again. How are you?
Hi, Lindley. Good afternoon and good morning to everyone out there.
Great to have you here. Of course, a huge thank you not just to you, Martin, as always, but to Smart Communications for sponsoring today's episode. Okay, now this time we're looking at personalizing at scale. Okay. Now, it's, we kind of know what goes into that in some ways, but isn't it really just a paradox? Is it even possible to personalize in granular ways at scale?
Well, personalization on a large scale is absolutely possible. However, there are some things to consider to make this possible. So currently, the industry segments customer based on a few parameters, such as their wealth. In the future, we will talk about the segment to one. But this means that a lot more data will have to be included. As you can also imagine, manual processing is no longer feasible. The effort would be too big. Therefore, it is important that automation goes hand in hand with personalization. The last thing to do is to provide assistance that allow personalization at scale. One of these is exactly what we offer at Smart Communications, a conversation cloud platform which enables fully personalized and tailored communication between the customer and the financial service provider.
Yeah, it is such a personal journey for everybody, and I suppose it is that case of really having a grip on an understanding of what each customer wants, because you can process accurately. You understand those breakpoints, those difficulties, and also the ways you can go forward. In just a minute or two, we're going to hear from the FCA's new Chief Data, Information and Intelligence Officer on how we can ensure fairness, transparency and privacy at all levels, and of course avoid those common data pitfalls. In your experience, Martin, where do the main issues and struggles with data really lie?
Well, one of the main issues I see is transparency. As mentioned before, we need more data from the customer for personalization. This goes far beyond the financial data, so that a personalized offer can be provided and the industry can act as a partner. But clients currently don't see the point of giving out information, that the financial service provider is kind of a black box. So here the industry needs to show customers what the data is used for. Clarity is needed. There also needs to be clarification on how the data is handled in terms of data protection. So a good first step can be seen what Apple and Google have done on smartphones in the latest updates, in which the user's consent is now required when an app wants to use the data.
Yeah, that's right. And it gives us a sense as consumers, a sense of control, which has always been very important. But almost we loop back to what we talked about in the first episode, which is trust. Trust and consumers sharing their data with an idea of how it's being used. I guess if you can make that clear and communicate better, then what you've got there is a conversation that really works for both sides.
Absolutely. Then we speak about a real two-way conversation.
Absolutely. Well, great to see you again. Perfect way to start, but it's time to hear from our episode 3 keynote speaker, Jessica Russo, who's the Chief Data, Information and Intelligence Officer at the FCA. Jessica, a very warm welcome to you. How are you?
Oh, thank you very much. I'm great. Thank you.
Good to see you there. Well, first of all, if you wouldn't mind just telling us a little bit about what you do at the FCA and what the FCA is doing. But first of all about you.
Right, thank you. So I joined the FCA in June as its first Chief Data Information and Intelligence Officer. So that is a very long title. And what does it mean? So I am here at the FCA to bring about the data and technology and intelligence revolution. So as you know, the FCA has always been doing, supervision and regulation and looking at expanding its perimeter and its powers. But we're really looking to supercharge the way we do so here at the FCA.
Well, we'll drill into some of the data aspects, and we'd love to hear that from you very shortly. But let's talk about digital transformation first of all. What do you think the economic impact of digital transformation is for financial services sectors and businesses when they do it right?
Right, yeah. So, I mean, we all know the financial services industry has seen pretty drastic technology-led changes over the past couple of years. I think there's three things really that strike me the most. One is consumer behavior changes. So that's how we interact through increased mobile connectivity. We're always on. We're transferring information quickly, and that has created new value chains between organizations and individuals. So it's the consumer behavior, and the second one is big data. So big data is sort of low-cost computing and data storage, and that's enabled us to process more amounts of data at lower cost and better service clients. So that, together with cloud adoption, has really created a lot of new functionality. And the third point is just around innovation. So the speed with which we've seen innovation happening, the creation of new business models, reg tech, challenger banks, fintech startups, the speed of this innovation is really the third piece that's driving the technology-led changes.
Yeah. And you mentioned innovation there. Of course, there's so much innovation going out there, digital-led. So I suppose, the FCA is working in that way too. You have to be doing a lot of work behind the scenes. What are you planning at the FCA?
So we have some really exciting trials going on with our digital sandbox. So, for example, we're bringing in cohorts of firms. Most recently, we're focused on sustainability type firms, and we're also looking at firms that are out there to combat fraud, for example. So we're able to test and learn these new kind of offerings in a regulatory environment, and that helps us learn and develop how we regulate, as well as helping innovative firms learn how to take their products to market successfully.
How digital first can you be? How data led can you be at the FCA, do you believe?
So that's the most powerful thing that we do is we make decisions, we take interventions, we're looking to protect customers, and that means we're taking actions. And so that means that we collect a lot of data. So we collect data from firms. We also scrape data from the web. We have other intelligence sources. And we bring together the information that we collect. And it's our remit to extrapolate from that information and make the best decisions that we can to protect customers. So that's how we're going to transform and speed up and scale the way we work here.
I suppose, Jessica, it also brings you really firmly into line with what the financial services companies are doing, and they need advice from you and guidance from you. You also need to understand and have a good relationship with them. So by doing this, you become closer together and you understand each other possibly better than in the past.
Yes, I think certainly I have a lot of commercial experience in my background. I've worked at Ford Motor Company, at GE Capital, at eBay. I've also worked at fintech startups. So I would like to think that I have a lot of understanding for how firms operate and need to operate in the digital world. And certainly I'm hoping that understanding that I have will help improve and scale the way we interact with firms in the future.
Yeah. In broad terms, given that customers, need a digital-led but also very close working relationship with their providers, but also the number of fintech firms and new players out there doing interesting things, How do you feel that the financial services firms could thrive and could adapt so well to the new landscape when they become much more digital savvy? I think that's, we are well on that road, but where is that taking us, do you think?
I think it's really important for firms to build a trusted relationship with their customers. So, speaking as a consumer, you often hand over your information in exchange for some kind of service, and you become the product. So it's really important to create trust and a trusted relationship. If you're a fintech firm or you're a financial services firm and you're interacting with consumers, you have to think about protecting that relationship with customers and protecting their data in particular. So data ethics, I think, is really a very important thread that we need to see in the future in the thinking for firms that want to be successful. User experience, it comes as no surprise, reliability, sustainability, processing time, improving products and services, being robust and having that infrastructure that protects customers and will ultimately offer value, right? New value chains.
And the hope for protection with customers is, I guess, in some ways to engage them with their data as well. Do you feel that it would be beneficial for us all as consumers to have a better handle on our data and what we're doing with it? Do you think that would be a good idea?
I get asked that question everywhere I go. It's so important, and I think there's so many important people looking at it from different angles. How do we protect customer information and make sure that it's not exploited? And certainly at the FCA, we're doing a lot of campaigns around awareness as well, in particular for fraud. There's a lot of different channels that bad actors are using, including TikTok or sponsors from trusted celebrities sponsoring things that are potentially not trustworthy organizations that will exploit people that aren't savvy about protecting their data. So we do see a lot on this, and we're very aware of it.
Yeah, the advisory aspect of that is always very important, and I'm sure a lot of firms are doing that too, as we know they are. Ultimately, what opportunities are there for firms and regulators in terms of getting that digital transformation right? I mean, it's going to enable fast, effective decisions. It's going to give you a clearer view of your customers, and hopefully then also build that relationship. So what opportunities do you think there really are?
Well, I mean, we see a lot of changes in technology, most notably cloud computing, the computing power, which is also allowing firms to reduce their cost and footprint. At the same time, this introduces some other complexities and security challenges, but ultimately offering more efficiency and scalability in terms of services. I think permanent connectivity and the digitization of interactions through the digital distribution models are driving this exponential growth and the volume of data that we see being generated. And overall, that's what's driving the digital economy and lowering some of the barriers to entry.
Yeah. A final thing, really, and it's a tough question, and you may not be able to answer it, is in terms of building relationships and having trust, which is so very important, not least in financial services. Is there anything that the business, the industry can do to perhaps build more trust, to have a better relationship, to have a better conversation with customers? Would there be anything that you think that we could do as an industry?
Well, I think there's an element of being able to see the information that is being held about you, being able to control your marketing options, being able to trust that the services and the information that you're sharing with the firms are not being compromised and are being protected, right? So I think it's all of those things come together that will ultimately build the trust with the consumers. And it's legislation as well. The UK government probably will be looking at this and doing more in the future to protect consumers.
So Jessica, what's keeping you up at night? What are you working hardest on at the moment?
So I'm actually really happy and inspired by the challenge in front of me, as are the teams, which is a real data strategy and technical innovation project that we're working on to transform and really deliver the intelligence-led future that we want to see. What are the challenges? Actually, at this moment, on the other side of the pandemic, we really have some more people-related challenges. You know, this hybrid way of working is quite challenging. We've got folks in the office, we've got folks at home. We also have a lot of people that are looking for new career opportunities across the entire industry. There's a lot of people that are switching roles or looking for new opportunities. So in many ways, we're at a pivotal moment of change, not just at the FCA, but more broadly across the market. So it's attracting, retaining talent, growing the team whilst keeping the teams that are working really hard engaged and happy and navigating through this hybrid way of working as we return to the office where I am here today in Stratford.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us, Jessica. Okay, let's get talking with our expert panel once again. First of all, Jason Maud. Jason is Chief Technology Advocate at Starling Bank. Jason, good to see you again.
Hi there, Lindy.
Next up, we have Grace Hanson. Grace is the Chief Claims Officer at Hiscox. Grace, great to see you there again.
Lovely to see you again, Linley.
And last but not least, warm welcome back to Martin Suter, Chief Product Officer Ascentis at Smart Communications. Hello again, Martin. Okay, look, when we think about data quality, where do the current weaknesses lie? How can they be overcome? Well, let's get into this discussion. Jason, first of all, Jason, when we think about data quality, where do the main weaknesses lie, do you think, at the moment?
Siloing, in a word.
Weren't we supposed to have got rid of those by now?
Yes, but it's a very difficult problem to get rid of, especially if you've built up multiple different systems which you don't really trust yourself to maintain.
Martin, what do you think about that? Silos or other weaknesses that you think are still there every day of the week?
I fully agree with that. Silos is a big topic here, and also kind of the single source of truth. At the moment, the same data is stored in many different systems, but it needs to be centralized and it needs to be validated on that single place.
Grace, what about you? What do you think in terms of from an insurance perspective?
My biggest problem with data is most of it is structured by humans. And so it is manually entered and often of dubious quality.
Yeah. Well, so many cracks can appear there. Let's talk about AI and cloud. Jason, for you, where do you think the main opportunities really practically are for AI and cloud in banking at the moment?
For cloud, certainly, I think that there are a lot of opportunities in allowing people to innovate and experiment, do things that they wouldn't otherwise be able to do. You can, if you're unsure about a product or a service, you can create some code, spin it up on a cloud instance, run it to see whether it works or not. And then if it doesn't, you can shut it down. And all you've paid for is the time you've been on the cloud. You don't have to go out and buy a new set of hardware in order to do it, which would discourage innovation.
Yeah. Thinking about key trends, Grace, for example, the rise of IoT and of open finance. Look, how do you think the data landscape will continue to move on and evolve? What do you think is coming up?
I think what's coming up is removing some of the human element of consuming the data. So a lot of the unstructured data gets structured through human intervention. I think that's going to start to change as the tools become more sophisticated and more complex. And in insurance in particular, we consume a lot of unstructured data, especially in the claims side.
And with cloud in mind, Jason's given us a good survey there, Martin, but in terms of security and agility, which is fundamentally important when you're considering cloud for your solutions and the way you work, what benefits does it have really from your point of view?
Well, agility goes hand in hand with speed, right? And the cloud exactly offering that. I mean, what Jason already mentioned, and I very well remember within huge banking projects, if you install an on-prem software, it needed a couple of weeks or even months to just get the hardware. On a cloud, you can do that in minutes, and you ramp off and just deploy it. And it has a clear abstraction of those layers. So from infrastructure to platform to services. And this also allows to have a clear security on each and every layer.
Yeah.
Everything is encrypted. The data can be encrypted, even during transportation, during data at rest. So that's not a problem at all. And on top of that, just to mention that the cloud enables us to think more in isolated services. So here the topic of microservices coming in place to containerize those services and not having these kind of monolithic software systems anymore.
Grace, what do you think in terms of offering that really personalized experience, the quality personalized experience? Insurers are going through a great process of looking at outcomes and looking at value. What do you think the end goal really is?
Well, our end goal is always ultimately to serve the customer, right? So, how we serve the customer is also a demographics issue. So what we're finding is we have always treated our customers as a monolithic block, and they are not a monolithic block. So the data that allows us to identify which cohorts need a particular kind of handholding, whether it's vulnerable customers or younger customers who are more digitally attuned and are looking for different experience, I think the better we'll be able to serve that purpose of protecting our customers and time of risk.
And as you said in the last episode, you've done a lot of work with vulnerable customers, really understanding, identifying, and hopefully then producing a great relationship that's very important in times of trouble.
That's absolutely.
Do you think that we customers, I'm in two minds about this as a customer, whether if I see the benefit of you having my data, I would offer that.
The problem is, and this gets to a slightly knotty question, and I think this also applies to the insurance industry. A lot of the time, the reason we want the data is to make judgments about the customers, about how much of a risk they are. Do we give them a loan, an overdraft? Do we allow them an insurance policy? Where do we set their premium at, et cetera, these sort of questions. And there's a danger that, you're revealing information to the customer by saying what you're using the data for that you don't want to reveal, or that in some cases it's actively against regulations for you to reveal.
Yes.
Some things like you can't reveal to a customer that you're going, oh, we need this data to check whether you're defrauding us. That sort of thing is counted as a tip-off.
I apologize for throwing that at you because it's a really tough question. But now we're on the subject, Grace. It is that point, isn't it? There is still distrust. So I suppose there's still a barrier to jump over before there's a really honest relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a challenge if you're in the industry, because of course it is important for the customers who do not commit fraud for us to ensure we are not paying the ones who do. But in order to make those decisions, we do need information from all of the customers, and that makes it more challenging.
Absolutely.
I think that it's important. Part of our job is to demonstrate the value proposition for giving up your data. I've noticed I have a 21-year-old. He's my gauge for all things modern. He's very techie. And it's quite curious. There's things he's really protective of and won't share. But if he thinks that's a really cool program that has demonstrated value to him, he's really eager to get on it and to give them what they need, because they're delivering that value in a very quick return cycle, right? And so unfortunately, banks and insurance don't often deliver value in, a minute, 2 minutes. No. It's when the house burns down, a year after the investment returns come in.
And we want to avoid that situation. That's exactly why we have insurance, but actually it's that safety net. Absolutely. It is a thorny issue. I'm glad we just tackled it briefly, but let's turn to support and how your industries can support customers financially, practically, and emotionally. Now, emotionally is very important. Grace, I'll stay with you for a second, but is there a way that you are stepping in the right direction in terms of offering that real feeling of support, not least emotionally? In the claims process, that must be absolutely acute.
It is, and that problem has been solved in the past by just having really nice people spend lots of time with the customer, and I think we can use data really efficiently and effectively in this way, because, for instance, we can use voice analytics to tell us if a customer is more vulnerable than another, if a customer is emotionally distressed. and we can ensure that that particular customer gets the right person to speak to them in the right amount of time. We also can limit what I call transactional contacts where the customer is calling us just to find out what's going on because we haven't told them what's going on. And that way we can have high value contacts where we're emotionally connecting with them, we're providing them with support, and we're guiding them. And then the low value transactional contacts, we're facilitating that being delivered to them. So there's, if we're thoughtful about the transactions we have with our customers, we can inject tremendous value in providing them with emotional support that's appropriate for them, whether they're vulnerable or not.
And Jason, I know, I mean, famously early on with Starling Bank, that the limits on or the ability to not gamble with your money through your account, that was famously and very effectively a tool that was put in place, and it did so much that was beneath the surface, actually. So I suppose, by being clever and being helpful and thinking laterally, you can do these things very, very effectively.
Absolutely. And what was also amazing about that is that required the collection of no extra data. There was no additional data that needed to be collected to put a gambling block on. That was already information that was flowing around the system. And I think that there's a lot of what Starling Bank has done with banking is opening up data that already existed, already was known by banks, and making sure that that was communicated to customers as quickly as possible. Where it was appropriate to do so. And I think that that's a key thing to build trust, because if you use your card and then you get a little notification saying you've just spent £5 at Tesco, you'll go, oh, I have. That's great, because now I know if someone goes and uses my card, clones it and uses it fraudulently, that I'll get the same notification and I can quickly stop it from happening. And
absolutely,
that's great. And that is really an emotional, thing. The protection of your money and the security thereof is a very emotional thing, and protection that.
And Jason, in terms of all of the work that you're doing, what do you feel that the end goal should be? And that's in Starling's case, but also in a bank's case. What should you be achieving by using personalization at scale?
Yeah. I think that personalization for me really has to be customer led. So it has to be about giving customers the tools to personalize their own experience, to select what data they see, how they see it, what products and services they use. We now have the technology to be able to offer a whole different range of ways of viewing data and products and services to different customers. And they really have to be the ones who define what they want. If companies start doing it, be it by choice or through AI or other machine learning based methods, the danger is, one, that you get it wrong and you start offering people things that they don't want, and annoying them with things that they don't need, or even worse, you get it right and you start creepily offering them, oh, you want this, don't you? And they go, yes, I do. How did you know that? You start predicting what they will want in a very creepy manner, and people don't really want that. They want to have the control themselves. So I think for me, personalization at scale means giving each individual customer the ability to take on board what they need and want, and be able to pick that from the range of things that you offer.
Absolutely. Well, a huge thank you to our panel of experts again, not only for this episode, but also for your time and insights over the last 3 weeks. Great to have had you with us, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Before we do go, let's round off episode 3 with our panelist and wonderful pundit, Martin. Martin, great to have you here with us right to the end. Look, first of all, what advice would you give to anyone who's struggling with their data quality?
Yeah, well, data is and must be strategic, and therefore I think it's a must of rethinking data management and to have a single source of truth. It's not necessary to store all data in one place, but it is important to store the specific data only once, which then can be consumed by systems. With a single source of truth, it's then possible to provide the right APIs to consume it. But the consumer service first always must explain why this kind of data is required, and the consumer must get the permission to get the data. And I think only with this, you are able to have a central understanding why and where data is used. And this understanding must be finally shared with the customer as well. The data quality will be improved by implementing the same pattern on the data capturing side and by validating it very early in the process.
Yeah, it's not repeated, it's reliable, and it's definitive. And that's a great place to be if you can get your data to that point. One thing you've spoken about throughout our series is agility, working agile, having an agile mindset. Again, how important is that in terms of, yes, scaling up a personalization, but really in terms of taking the next steps so that clarity is there all the way through, that you know exactly what you're doing and that customers also know what they're getting from you?
Well, I think that's one of the most important points here. Agility allows to react on customer needs. We have done that within our company the same way. And yes, it needs a lot of time that everyone understands what agility means, that you have an iterative way to improve your services and involve customers from the very beginning, get their feedback, and really starting a two-way conversation to improve your service that you provide to your customers.
Absolutely. And it also fits into what we were talking about in an earlier session about the way you work as an organization. If you can get that agile mindset in place, you can start to test, you can start to come up with great products that really fit the customer needs. So that would be great. Final question, Martin. Is scaling up personalization personable? Can it be a personable thing? And if so, what is at stake if you just don't get it right?
So through the segment to one principle, what I mentioned at the beginning, personalization becomes personal. If we don't do this, then the industry will fade into that background because the added value of a financial service provider will not be recognizable. And customers want to be served individually. That is the expectation. As Ashok, CEO of Barclays, mentioned in the first episode, the goal must be to bring the service we know in private banking down to retail banking. And this is only possible if we rely on a mix of automation, self-service, and personalization at scale.
Yeah. Well, it is time to close up. Thanks, Martin, so much for being with us throughout the series. Thanks to Smart Communications for sponsoring our sessions. A huge thanks to all of our speakers who've been absolutely wonderful. And of course, to you for tuning in to the series. Please do send us your feedback by completing the review form on the webpage. We really appreciate your feedback. It guides us and makes what we do better in the future. Of course, if you did like the series, share the page and spread the knowledge. It only remains to say thanks very much for watching. Until next time, take care of yourselves. All the best. Bye-bye.